Welcome to our candidate forum featuring the candidates for Board of Supervisors District 3. I am Betsy Kerr, member of the League of Women Voters of El Dorado County and the moderator for today's forum. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization of women and men established to promote political responsibility through informed, active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose political candidates or parties. However, after careful study, we take positions on political issues. For example, you can find the League's recommendation on its California website on a proposition appearing on your March 5th ballot. So be prepared for that. LWVC.org, which means League of Women Voters California, will give you their opinion. VotersEdge.org will show you your actual ballot when you enter your address. The format for today's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will make a 2-minute opening statement. The candidates will respond to questions from you, the audience, and the questions are reviewed, consolidated, and assured appropriate by League members over here at the table. Many times people ask the same questions, so there's no sense in doing anything but, of course, coalescing them, consolidating them. If during the forum you write more questions, raise your hand so your card may be collected. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Finally, the candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. I will alternate the opportunity to be the first to answer each question. In the interest of time and decorum, I ask our audience to hold all applause until the end of the forum. And I'd very much like to thank the city staff for setting up this room for us. A reminder about the mics: push the button to turn it on and push it again to turn it off. Now I'd like to introduce the candidates running for the Board of Supervisors in District 3. We have Brian DeBerry, Brian Veerkamp, Lexi Boger, and Gary Martin. So, now we're ready for questions and answers. All right, here's the first one.
Actually, they need to give their opening statement. Their opening statement.
Oh, yes, that's right. We're ready for your opening statement. Brian DeBerry.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a lifelong resident of this county. I'm a Vietnam vet. And I'm happy to see all of you here tonight taking an interest in your county government. I've known some of you people for years, but tonight is not about me. It's about what I want to do to help all of you and everybody else in the county. I see too many things wrong in this county right now. All of us, have to take it on and fix them. And I will be talking about insurance, our roads, because they're intertwined, about our fiscal budgets, which are messed up with potential problems coming. I put out a little paper at the back that's turquoise. It'll list to you some of the issues that we're facing financially as I see it, with a little bit of common sense. And I always believed in what Bill Cosby said: you never take a rock to a gunfight. That's a sign of common sense. So I've always believed in common sense, care and compassion, doing leadership with integrity behind. But I want this job not to cover you people. I want to get a job to help this county and the people I love. Thank you.
Could you hear him okay? Yeah. Or should he be closer to the microphone? Get as close to the microphone as you can. Mr. Veerkamp.
Well, good evening. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this tonight. Thank you all for being here on this rainy, stormy night. Yay, rain. We need every inch we can get. My name is Brian Veerkamp. I'm a 5th generation El Dorado County resident, born and raised here, educated here, other than Sac State and some law school at Lincoln Law School in Sacramento. I've spent 32 years in the fire service, protecting the citizens of El Dorado County, and retired in, now 2011 from the El Dorado Hills Fire Department as a fire chief. I've worked collaboratively with our local government and during that career, and then decided to throw my hat in the ring and run for the Board of Supervisors in 2012, got elected and served 2 consecutive 4-year terms as District 3 Board of Supervisors. Again, working collaboratively with the City of Placerville, all of our other elected officials and department heads, various community groups, and very proud and honored to serve in that capacity. I represented the county also. There was various boards and commissions that Board of Supervisors have to sit on, and one of the honors I had was chairing the Sacramento Area Council of Governments as well in one of those years that where I served as a Board of Supervisor. I'm currently on the Marshall Hospital Board, the El Dorado Community Foundation Board, and oh gosh, there's probably 1 or 2 others besides that El Dorado Irrigation District Board also, and I'm in my 4th year there. I was president of that board last year. It's, again, for me, it's not about me, it's about serving people. I've been blessed with a good career, and now it's about giving back to the citizens that have made that career possible for me. My wife Lori, 43 years, got grandkids, and I just love El Dorado County, and this is what I'm here to do. So thanks again for being here tonight, appreciate it.
Thank you. Lexi?
Thank you. I'm glad to see everybody here, and thank you guys for hosting this awesome event. My name is Lexi Boger, born and raised right here in District 3 on my family's property. They were the first commercial winery in the county in 1972. So raised on a farm. It was more of a farm at the time, where I honed my amazing wine glass washing skills and customer service for 18 years. And I added it up recently. I think that I've poured 500,000 individual wine tastes in my life, and I'm just calling that the original public service. So that's my service background. Left the county, went to UC Davis, got an art degree, spent the last 30 years in professional marketing, graphic design, business strategy, and product development in the wine industry and related industries. Had some leadership roles there, president of the Winery Association, El Dorado County, served there for 8 years through some really difficult times. We had a smoke taint, a fire, a flood, COVID shutdown, a frost, another fire. Maybe I got those orders mixed up, but it's been a rough decade for us. But shepherded the organization through that kind of a thing. Came back here when I had my kids, moved back to Placerville. I am a modern family with a single mom with 2 kids working and average income, so that's why you see housing, economic opportunity, and cost of living as some of my priorities, because that is the world that I live in, as I know many of you and your loved ones also have that experience here, so that's sort of the perspective that I come from there. I've worked with government from those other roles, but recently from the inside, I've worked with government as the District 3 appointee to CDAC and to our Planning Commission, which is a job I love, and just looking forward to having this conversation with you guys tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. Gary?
Good evening. My name is Gary Martin, and I'm running for supervisor. I'm running a grassroots campaign. My family wasn't born here. I wasn't born here. My parents moved here in 1976, although we did come over on the Mayflower. I've been trying to find a way to fix what I've seen change in our county over the years, and there's just been too many things that have disturbed me about the way the county's been run. I'm only running for one reason: to be your voice, try to help make it so that the people of El Dorado County and the residents of District 3 have a voice that's heard for a change. I became a commercial helicopter pilot after high school. I had a business for 30 years doing commercial flying in the Valley in Northern California in El Dorado County. I became a Department of Justice firearms instructor. I plan on using all the same tools and wisdom that I had from those jobs towards any voting that I would be doing as supervisor when I'm elected. I hope to be able to serve the people and protect what matters. We all moved here for a reason. We came here because there was something special that we found in the area that brought us to this town, brought us to this community. I think that our historic areas, they need to be protected. Our water resources, our forests, our farmlands, All of that needs to be taken better care of, and the people, their concerns need to be addressed, and I feel that they haven't been. And that's the reason I'm running, is to help you get a voice that's actually heard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have the first question. Several departments with the county are so understaffed because of low wages and poor management, they are close to imploding. How do you plan to increase wages so that services to your constituents don't get cut off? And we'll start with Brian DeBerry.
The first I want to do is build a bond and a relationship between all of you and the county, and we work at the problem together. I need your support to do whatever I do, and I want to hear be your voice, and I will be holding town meetings if I'm elected, at least once a month, Camino, Placerville, or Diamond Springs, where you can come and voice your opinions so that I know what the collective you want done. I want you to help participate in the answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So it's a little bit complicated, obviously. Employees are definitely needed, and we need to be competitive with salaries and benefits and so forth. And in an economy that continues to be full of problems and issues, we've got to do the best we can locally to bolster our economy. We're primarily a tourist-based economy, and we have to, but you have to find a fine balance between that also, because it also taxes our roadways and infrastructure. But that's what we have to emphasize, and then as well provide the best level of service that we can. And, remembering that we're competing with Sacramento, Placer County, and even Amador County now is starting to be very competitive in the salary and wage benefit. So we've got employees, we have to support them. We have to make sure and hold them accountable to the job that they're doing. And it's tough because, again, to be as competitive as some of these other counties that are booming, it makes it definitely a difficult task. But I'm up for it. We've provided that before, and we will continue to in the future, hopefully.
Thank you. Lexi?
Wish we had 5 minutes for this one. Pretty simply, I think that we have a revenue problem at the county. Lack of creativity in how to generate funds so that we can afford our employees and to hire people has seen diminishing returns. We need to look at our inefficiencies in our processes, where we are having employees take extra time for things and our productivity isn't what it should be. So we can save costs if we look at some of those processes without cutting staff. We need to modernize our thinking in those bureaucratic thought processes before we modernize our tech, but we need to do both so that we can be more efficient with who we have. But at the end of the day, it's a revenue issue, and the county has left oodles of dollars on the table with the millions of tourists who are well-heeled who come through the county. So we need to look at some modern business improvement district strategies to get some of the tourists coming through, to get some revenue from them to pay for our staffing and our roads that they impact and those types of things. So we can do that in a way that's beneficial for our rural businesses, and it keeps that payment off of our taxpayers and our residents, and it's a way for us to generate enough funds to afford to be paying our employees what they need.
Thank you. All right. Larry?
Well, I feel that we don't have enough jobs that give a good, decent living wage for people to survive and thrive in this county. I think that we need to reduce some of the burden of overregulation for small businesses and encourage more small businesses to be brought into our town. We need to find a way to bring more tourism to our county. I know that a lot of the counties, they don't seem to be really taking advantage of the fact that this is where the gold rush started. That's the reason people come here. There's a lot that can be brought into this county, and we can make a lot more money if they end up doing that. I mean, Apple Hill, that's the reason people come to Apple Hill. They have apples and Christmas trees and pumpkins in their own town, but they come here because it's something special coming here. I think that we can bring in more work, more jobs for everybody if we try to make more businesses for people to have, and like I said, better jobs for people so that they can survive in this county. Trying not to make it so that people have higher taxes is a plus. Right now, it seems like they don't do that enough for that. A lot of the money I see going for the infrastructure of our county, it doesn't end up doing what it could be put towards people like, having a better life here. I think that the jobs in our area, they definitely need to be changed so that we have more jobs for people that can actually survive and stay in this town.
All right, thank you. Gary, you'll be the first one to answer the next question. There are two that are very similar. We're still on the topic of economics and budgeting. What happened to the 20-some million dollars the federal government gave to the county to assist with post-COVID client services? And the other one is California is 68 billion in the red. When the tax revenues do not come in and the county reserves are not enough, what do you do?
Well, that's a very good question. The way that the county has been run lately, I don't know how we're going to be able to fix all of that. I do know that if we get together and we have meetings with all of the residents and find out what they feel and what they want, and we try to do more of what they want to have done, I think that we can make something change. I think that if I become a supervisor, I hope to be able to have more town meetings where we can get together and talk about this, and maybe we can come together and find some sort of answer so that we can help reduce the taxes in El Dorado County so that it's easier for the residents to survive here.
Thank you. Mr. DeBerry, you're next.
In my little flyer at the back of the room, and I've talked to Joe Harn about this at a taxpayers meeting. This county right now, and this is 2022 from their own words, 49% of the money that's in the budget comes from grants, either state or federal. Okay, that's 49%. Okay, you take El Dorado Hills, they're soon to become a city, maybe not this year, maybe next year. That revenue goes away. So the grants are not positive. They're not going to be here till, pardon the Russian, hell freezes over. We have to pick up a way to pick up the slack. The county is already eyeballing that. I mean, at least if you use common sense and think about it, we don't have any mining anymore. We don't have any lumber anymore. Tourism is hurting. The small farms are hurting because they're having to close because of higher EID water rates. So what has the county got left to do work with? Homes. So it's probably not written anywhere, but they're going to push big time developments down because they want the property tax if El Dorado Hills goes away. So we collectively all have to figure a way to do this. We increase jobs. It all fits into a big scheme that we put together, all of you and me, and I'm your voice to get it done. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bergkamp?
Yes, well, obviously the state is hurting. They're 50 to 60, depends on who you believe, million short. And then, so that's going to be some reality. It's going to hurt our school districts, and it could hurt a lot of this grant-funded stuff at the county. And you know, if we have to make cuts there, we just have to make those cuts because a lot of them are service-oriented, and the services to those people just may need to be cut back. As far as the COVID relief funds, there was $20-some million on the table, and it went to various places. I was sitting as the executive director for our ambulance authority for the last 2 years, and during that time we had applied for some of that funding. What more could it be, or should it be given to, than the people who are out there serving COVID? And we were doing that through the emergency service and the ambulance, and the county denied us. So some of the decisions made in the last 4 years by the supervisors are very questionable. I think everybody's alluded to them here. And I know when I was serving as your supervisor, we certainly have things in better shape as well as the county budget, and I'm very concerned about it. And that's why I want to be back involved and try to straighten some of it out. So.
Okay, thank you. Lexi?
Well, I think the first question was what happened to the federal COVID assistance funds, and you know, this goes back to this idea that governments are failing in the digital age and the technological age. There was massive amounts of redistribution of those funds through fraud because the systems and the websites that the federal government was using for people and businesses to get in there and apply for that money were easily hacked, and there was a mass amount of fraud that went on with a lot of that money. So that's just one aspect of where that money didn't come to us. But in the second general part of your question, which is when our funds run out, what is the county gonna do? And that goes back to my first answer that says this county needs to actively start thinking about revenue generation for the county that is not property taxes and leaning more on the residents and raising fees and getting that way. We need to get creative and apply some modern models to generate revenue for the county to take care of ourselves so that we can be independent. We do need to apply for these grants and we need to stay on that and be diligent, but we also have to be self-sustaining as well because that may not always be there for us.
All right, thank you. Lexi, you get to answer the next question. What specific measures will you put in place to see that people create defensible space on their properties, especially directed at those currently refusing to do so?
Well, I think this is a very interesting question since we have the vegetation management ordinance is currently up for review right now. It's pretty heavy-handed in terms of mandating people what they need to do, it becoming code enforcement. If they don't get it done, it can go to a lien on their property. It doesn't have a lot of leeway for someone to have a hardship declaration in there. We've got a lot of fixed income seniors that this could be very difficult for. I think we need to get this done. Everybody wants to be fire resistant, but I really think this county needs to start looking at, instead of the government solution of a heavy-handed policy that is a stick, we need to think about a carrot. I think residents absolutely, if the funding is there, say through grant funding that a fire safe council's done, and they said we have the funds to clear these trees off the road, I think that resident should be forced to let them do it. I don't think you should be able to say no because you don't want your view obscured. However, I don't think you should be forced to have to do it yourself if you can't afford it. There's, you know, when you think about, you know, every county road has to be cleared, the county can't afford to do that, and residents can't necessarily afford to do it either. So we need to look at incentive programs. I would look at a tax rebate for folks who get their properties cleared, or other ways that we can proactively incentivize people instead of just browbeating them and then getting them into a financial situation.
Thank you. Gary?
I feel that we need to get more people involved in the county on that one. Trying to bring the insurance companies back in, see if we can get them to the table, see if we can find a way to get more people to find some way to take care of clearing. We've got a lot of companies in the area that do tree trimming, and like I said, even Red Hawk Casino, they have their own group that does clearing. I had a house one time in Cameron Park, and there was a green belt behind my property that was 10 acres, and nobody was clearing that. We all had to clear our property. The fire department came out and they said they were going to take care of clearing it and then just send them the bill. And unfortunately for some of the residents, that's going to be really tough if they get a huge bill from somebody coming in and just clearing it. That's when the county's going to have to get involved, try to find a way to make it easier for some of the residents who can't afford it to get it done. How we can do that, that's going to take some time. It's going to mean that we're going to have some meetings with some of the people in the county, get the fire department involved, maybe get the state involved in it too, to see if there's any way that we can help those residents afford this.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. DeBerry?
We have an insurance problem, and obviously everybody knows that. And we also have a vegetation ordinance that's coming through to me. It's more restrictive than it needs to be. I think it lacks compassion for the homeowner. I'll give you an example. Everybody likes a little bit of greenery around their house. Otherwise, they have just a house, and that's all they have. What happens to the person, your wife passes away, and you planted a tree 20 years ago in her memory, and they come up and tell you, you have to take that out. That is not compassionate for the people that own the property, and we have to stop that. We have to really look at the handling of what we're doing. I can show you a picture on my cell phone. We're also hurting the animal life. I know it's one of those things, but I live in Diamond Springs, and I have a picture of a doe up on my deck table eating birdseed because everybody in Diamond Springs is taking down what they eat. It's a two-sword. We've got to balance between nature on one side and fire on the other side. And the insurance problem, I think I've got an idea. Hopefully I'll get asked that later because I'm running out of time. Thank you.
Mr. Bergkamp?
Well, very interesting. Brian, it's funny you bring up the tree removal. My insurance company made me remove my trees that I planted for, whether it was for a loved one or for somebody else. So the insurance company's really driving the boat here, and we've got to be aggressive so we can get insurance back, not only in El Dorado County, but other counties around us as well. The catastrophic wildfires mostly have occurred on federal lands, and we've got to hold them accountable. I've had 2 opportunities to go to Washington, D.C. and testify before congressional committees relevant to this issue. We've got to get the Forest Service and BLM that own property in El Dorado County to clean up their properties as well, because that's where most of the catastrophic wildfire has been occurring. Yes, we do have problems around our residences, but between our fire districts, our fire safe councils have done an excellent job in helping people. The vegetation management ordinance is just one tool in the toolbox that needs some refinement, but that's being worked on by some really, really sharp people, and I think we can, piece this together. But we've got to deal with the insurance issue, and that's at a higher level. State as well as federal government, I think, needs to be involved so we can get insurance back. And it's not only in El Dorado County, it's across the country. So we've got to be advocates, and we've got to be at the table, and we've got to fix the problem.
Okay, thank you. You get to answer the next question, which is related. One aspect of widespread landscape hardening is a rupture of the food chain. Small mammals are food for owls, hawks, and predators. No shrubs equals no cover, necessary for the lower trophic levels. Does this matter?
That was for me.
Yes.
Certainly it matters. I mean, we certainly love our small animals, but what happens when we have a catastrophic fire? Most of them get burned up. On the King Fire, you go back into the Rubicon River drainage and you can't find a frog or an amphibian left in that area yet, due to just the absolute obliviation of the soils as well as the landscape. So there's got to be a balance, and we can do it. We really can. So we just have to work diligently at it, and we can work together on it. And obviously they do matter, but we've got to be smart about it, because when we have the fire, Caldor was the last one, there's nothing left in some of these places. Well, Fire Mountain Road, there's no cover whatsoever. So we've just got to be more aggressive, and hopefully we can prevent some of these things rather than just chasing our tail.
Lexi?
Well, it's not unnoticed that the vegetation management ordinance that came down at the state level exempted itself from CEQA, so none of those studies were done, and you can see why that process would have taken a long time, but there's not a voice in there about how to manage it. But if you look back in history, we've gotten to this point by extreme measures on all sides, right? So you had originally, you've got Forest Service, who for 100 years said absolutely no fires, let no fires burn. So you get an unnatural buildup. Wildfires are supposed to do a natural job of coming in low and managing the thing. You've got logging companies who originally would replant all with one type. That's not biodiversity. I think they did develop some better practices later. We need to bring them back in to be a part of the solution, but it needs to be done thoughtfully, because you've got to have a diversity of all of these different types of trees in there. And then we have the environmentalists come in as well and say absolutely no logging and no fires. And then we got this whole thing come together in a crossroads, making an absolute tinderbox and a biological disaster. So we do need to look at the environmental aspects that make a healthy forest. It's going to take all of these different players coming in to do so. It's a long-term process. It's not going to get solved with one answer right now, but we need to get to a sustainable, long-term future plan.
Gary?
Well, as far as the preservation of wildlife, I'm all for trying to find ways to do that. That's part of what made our county beautiful. We have a lot of wildlife up here, very diverse. There's different groups in the area that take care of that kind of thing that we could talk to. We could also talk to the state about getting some more funding to help with that. Bringing in, people to put owl boxes on their property to encourage owls to take up roost on their property. I don't think you're gonna have a shortage of mice or gophers or anything, if anybody knows what that's like in El Dorado County. There never seems to be a shortage of them. So as far as feeding the, the hawks and the owls, I think we'll be okay with that. Wildlife has a tendency to bounce back. It always has. I mean, we had the wolves that we didn't have any anywhere, and all of a sudden they start popping up down there in Yosemite. So if, the things will change, as long as we can find a way to balance the fire preservation and taking care of cleaning and clearing out for fires. I think that if it's done in a smart way, the wildlife will sustain. They will be okay. They will survive.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeBerry?
This issue of the wildlife, it is a major problem. I grew up here, and because of the last fires we've had, I don't know how many of you people know what a Steller's blue jay is. They're a real pretty dark blue with a black top knot. Used to be all over these foothills until these fires. And I haven't seen any until yesterday. I saw one in Diamond Springs. That's the first time I've seen any of them. They can't speak for themselves. We have to take care of the husbandry of we have to be good stewards of our county. And that includes water, that includes taking care of our insurance, which I'm hoping to get a chance to put more as my idea. And I think it needs investigation. But again, it's all of us. That's why I'm happy to see all of you here tonight, taking an interest in what's happening and what you need to help fix. Because all of us need your help to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, you get to be the first one on the next question. In the state of the county address, it was noted that in order for the county to meet the service needs of the citizens, more housing is needed. That seems like a circular argument. An increase in residents requires added road maintenance and traffic control. Do you see meeting the county's financial needs by increasing housing developments? If not, what is your strategy? That's you.
Could you repeat the last part of that question, please?
Yes. It seems like a circular argument. An increase in residents requires added road maintenance and traffic control. Do you see meeting the county's financial needs by increasing housing developments? And if not, what is your strategy?
Like I said before, the county, in my opinion, is edging us towards wholesale big subdivisions, which we can't handle. We don't have the water. Everybody says we have water. Yes, maybe we have now. 20 years from now, do we have water? No, possibly not. We have to find a way together to fix the problem that we are currently in. Our roads are nothing. They're nothing. I worked for Caltrans for 23 years doing road design, highway designs, inspection, and I can tell you right now that most of the roads in this county are the same way they were when I learned to drag race on them 60 years ago. They haven't had any pavement on them. They haven't had any culverts changed. They're failing. You go through Diamond Springs anytime between 3:30 and 5:30, and you'll see what years of just absolutely nothing have done to that town. And to bring in a big, huge subdivision like they're trying to throw in there on top of all that is not going to work. Right now, the county has done more in the last 4 months to destroy roads than they have to fix the roads. Missouri Platte Road is now a disaster. If it rains, you can't see the lines on the road. Pleasant Valley Road is the same way from El Dorado up to Diamond Springs. They shouldn't have let those jobs go in middle of August. They won't get repaved till maybe 8 May when it gets warm enough. We have to fix those, and that's part of what I'm trying to get done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bierkamp?
Yes, well, housing and a certain element of growth is essential to survival. But the issue is, where does that go? Where does the growth go? And then how does it get done, and how is it paid for? Infrastructure is lacking in this county in many, many places, and a lot of it has to do with the state highway system as well. Highway 50, Highway 49, which Brian's referring to through Diamond Springs, is far outgrown its capacity and needs help. Obviously, the bypass will help with that some, but it's certainly not going to be any type of incentive to bring more housing over in that area whatsoever. So Infrastructure has got to be there before, and we're certainly lacking now. The current infrastructure as well is in disrepair. There's things that DOT does about paving management indexes and other things. They're trying to keep ahead of it. But with everything going to electric vehicles, guess what? The gas tax is down, and there's been no backfill of that. So we've got to be at the state. We've got to be advocating for their assistance. And as far as our growth and our housing, not only the city, Cleve's sitting back there, he understands this very well, but the county, we have to plan it, and it has to be planned appropriately, and where you put it as well has to have infrastructure. Otherwise, we're just going to ruin our rural areas, which I'm not for.
Lexi?
I think the question was, is the housing meant to meet the county's financial needs? And from my perspective, it can't, it shouldn't. That shouldn't be the reason to do it, and I don't think it will. Our housing element, which is mandated by state law for us to fill, we had 7 years to do it. I think we have 3 years left to build these houses. We need 5,500 units is what we're required to build. 2,500 of those are supposed to be affordable. We can't depend on that for our financial needs. We need to go back to some of the things I was talking about, the business improvement districts, tourism dollars, and that kind of a thing. How do you have the infrastructure support it? We need to be creative with where we put it. I think for one, suburban sprawl and the way that we used to develop is not the way that we need to develop anymore. We don't need to be spreading out over all of these hills. We can leverage and take advantage of infrastructure that's already existing, leverage some of the cost and investment we've already put in. So you're looking at infill near the corridors and where there's already some infrastructure there so that you can sort of build on it instead of building completely new out towards the rural areas.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Well, stopping from any growth from happening is impossible. Growth is going to happen. We're going to get new homes. But we need to make sure we have the infrastructure for those homes. If everybody sticks to the general plan and Measure E, we would be okay. But instead, they keep eroding that over and over again. I feel that developers, they need to be paying for those road improvements. If they're going to be coming in here with any developments, they need to pay for it, not the taxpayers. I feel that's the best way that we're going to be able to survive this.
Okay, thank you. You get to answer the next question, which is very closely related. Gary, you're first. Our county does not have enough affordable workforce housing. What can be done?
Well, as far as housing for the workforce, that's going to be something that we're going to have to work together with. I'm not exactly sure how we can come up with more low-income housing right now. I know they're already putting in a lot. I do believe that the second dwelling units that people can put on their property is an answer for some of that. If you're looking for a home, I hear a lot of residents saying how they're going to be able to get their grandkids are going to be able to afford to live in our town down the road. That's one of those things that the second dwelling is probably going to be the best solution right now for that. It's really hard to find a way to get the county to put in more low-income apartments, low-income housing, and also have the residents in those locations be happy with that. So I think that we're going to have to work together to find an answer for that one, and that's the best answer I have for you on that.
Okay, Mr. DeBerry?
This issue of workforce housing to me is kind of nebulous. We don't have any jobs in this county for that, what you're saying is workforce housing. So where are the jobs? They're down in Sacramento or places beyond. So if the people move up here, that means they have to commute to the valley to go to work. To me, it's obvious after working for 23 years for Caltrans out of Stockton, that all this housing that they're talking about should be off of the areas that we need for agricultural statewide, and between, say, 500 feet elevation and 1,000. So they don't have to commute on the freeways, tie up our roads, tie up everything else with an infrastructure problem that we all have to deal with. The second that goes along with it, the supervisors of the past have failed to adequately take care of the problems that I see: water, roads, and the people here now, and you in this room when I say that, should not have to pay the burden of anything for a developer to put stuff in. We keep it down and closer to the valley where the jobs are, create the housing that's being mandated, and let this rest of it stay up here rural, and everybody just work towards an end that helps everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So obviously, with affordable workforce housing, that's really the missing element of El Dorado County and many other places as well. Unfortunately, the housing market pricing has gone up so fast with a very small amount of availability. You then what? You don't have any place for anybody to live. Between Marshall Hospital, EID, the county employees, our local restaurants, there are a lot of workforce housing, and those aren't all high-paying jobs, so we have to take care of those folks. And it's very important. This should be a priority. Obviously, the state mandates its housing element, but we should do the best job we can to create. And what's affordable? Well, it's going to be quite different between you and me, but it's what we need to do so we can keep our youth here. We do a great job educating them, and then they go off and they never come back. So, but I do know of some examples where they have, and we got to make that affordable starter home for them to do it. Diamond Springs Deer Park was a great example of the sweat equity homes that were built. Out on Mallard Lane was another one where there was sweat equity homes that were available to them. So there are projects that can be done. Again, they have to be done in a smart manner around infrastructure, and we can be successful.
Okay, thank you. Lexi?
I'll refer back to the housing element where we are required to build 2,500 affordable units, and the last time that they were supposed to give a progress report to the Board of Supervisors, staff put it in the consent calendar as a spreadsheet. You could hardly interpret it to see what was going on, but when you dig into it, we found that at that point we had built 0 affordable houses, and this is years into our housing element. I think fixing the processes at the county around building of any kind for small homeowners is critical. We were supposed to have an ADU program years ago, and at this point they're still waiting to form a task force around it. Placer County has an incredible ADU program, a beautiful website, and 13 models you can download that are pre-approved. I don't see why we aren't partnering with someone like Placer and just paying them a fee to copy their program. They have the same snow loads, they have the same geography. They're simple solutions that if our county would just start thinking creatively and efficiently, we could move forward, but we have a basic broken system in our planning processes. And that's not a people problem. Staff is doing a great job, but it's a culture problem. And we need to get in there and get these efficiencies going so we can start building some housing. And I think the final piece is to say at the end of the day, the state does have funding for affordable housing, but they have so many special interests tied to that money that it's taken all the profitability out of it for a builder. So we do need to put pressure back up on the state to clean that up.
Okay, thank you. All right, you get to be first on the next question, Lexi. On the topic of elections, if you're elected supervisor, how do you plan to protect the ballot box?
How do I plan to protect the ballot box from ballot fraud? Is this the question?
Is that the question? Fraud? Okay, let's assume it is.
I can put on my scariest outfit and stand at the slot at the county buildings maybe and scare folks. How would I protect it? I don't know that I have a real good answer to that. I'm not sure what level of fraud is happening in the county. If that is something that is going on, I mean, I think we would need to work with law enforcement and whoever's looking into it. If they can get evidence of that happening, then we can assess how it's happening and then make a plan to address it later. But as far as I'm concerned, I haven't heard, that we have seen that. But I'd have to look at where it's been seen, what's the evidence, and get agencies together to work on it. But that's sort of an after the fact thing. I'm not predicting fraud, how I would stop it. So
Thank you. Gary?
Well, that's a question that I do not know the answer to. I wish I could tell you how we would fix fraud in our county. I know one thing, starting out in this election here is new for me, and I've already encountered people trying to hack my webpage, my Facebook page. I've seen signs being torn down and destroyed, and it's obviously pretty cutthroat when it comes to politics in this town. I've heard District 3 is one of the more ruthless ones too. As far as the people doing any fraud in our county, I encourage everybody to come out and vote in person myself. Have more elected officials there at the ballot box, maintaining and monitoring what's going on. I think that that's probably our best shot at trying to protect, what we've got as far as an elections. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeBerry?
I believe that we have to go back to the ballot box as we used to do it. I mean, I've listened to people up here. Microphone. I've listened to people up here talking about ballot fraud and stuff. I can give you truthfully one example. The last election in Diamond Springs, I'm sitting in the post office parking lot on a Saturday, and this Hispanic couple, middle-aged, pulls up alongside me, and they get in a really heated argument. Finally, the lady gets out, comes over, and she says, "Sir, is this El Dorado?" And I said, "No, ma'am, El Dorado is about 3 miles back that way." No, is this El Dorado County?" I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "Well, why do you need to know that?" "Well, we came here to vote." It actually happened. We have to secure the ballot box and go back to the way we used to do it. It can be done. This mail-in stuff has got to go away. We got to go back and have honesty within ourselves and our neighbors to do the right thing. And I would do everything I could to go back to the ballot box.
Thank you. Mr. Veerkamp?
Yeah, well, I've been honored to be a local City of Placerville Kiwanian. We work elections every year, unless I'm running for something, and you can't work elections. So I've been there as well as a board of supervisor, as an observer. So I know our people do, within their framework, their best due diligence to do everything correctly. Now, at a higher level, I think there's lots of opportunity for things to go awry, and I certainly am a person that thinks that we should, one person, one vote, and you go in and identify yourself to vote. It is an honor to vote in this country, and should be, and we need to get back to that, and we'll clear up this whole election fraud mess.
Thank you. You get to be the first person on this question. I have two here that are related, so I'm going to combine them. Do you support diversity inclusion training for county employees? And what are your thoughts on its value? And if you could bring back the Human Rights Commission, would you? And what would you change about it?
I support equal rights for all people. We're doing way too much damage by dividing people up. We are either Americans or we're not. And the longer we promote this and put it out there, the longer we're going to be divided. We should all be one or we're not. That's simple.
Okay. Thank you. Lexi?
Thank you. Yeah, the question was, do we have diversity inclusion training for county staff and electeds? I think absolutely. This is just something that's important to do. We don't have a lot of exposure necessarily in our county to diversity, and it doesn't hurt to go through these programs and to learn about it. It's not going to kill anybody, and I think it's really important that people, understand these things and understand how to deal with folks and have difficult conversations and learn how to, make change across differences and that kind of thing. It's a very powerful thing to learn to do, and people should get in there and do it. As far as the Human Rights Commission, that was a great example of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I said it a bunch of times. We're in an era where we've got some leadership that is not interested in any of their committees and commissions weighing into the Board of Supervisors. It's very top down right now, and these commissions are not there necessarily just for the supervisors to get advice and recommendations. They are a portal by topic for the public to be able to have a voice that goes back to the board. When we close these commissions, any of them, Veterans Affairs, the Elderly Affairs, or CDAC, Economic Development, or Human Rights, what you're telling that entire sector of the community is we don't care what you have to say. So it's important that we have a voice for human rights to give advice on issues coming before the board and to tell them what the impacts might be through their expertise line.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
I agree that we should have diversity inclusion training here in El Dorado County. I think that it's necessary. When I grew up here, there wasn't a lot of diversity. It's changed, and I think everybody needs to get on board with that. There's nothing you're going to be able to do to preserve this little town in this little bubble. It's not going to happen. As far as the Human Rights Commission is concerned, I'm all for human rights. I think that we definitely need to work on that. But the Human Rights Commission that was here, there were some problems with that. I think that they need to really look into what their motivation is behind these commissions and make sure that they stick to what their intention was originally and it doesn't get diverted to something else.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. You get to answer the next question, I think.
Same question.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's right. Mr. DeBerry.
I believe in human rights, and I have to defer to what my grandfather told me years ago when I was a little boy. He said, son, there are good people and there are bad people. You have to learn to tell the difference. It doesn't matter what the color of their skin or whatever, there are good people and there are bad people. Growing up in Georgetown in the 50s, I didn't see a Negro, I didn't see any Asians because it was a logging community. So I have run my life with my grandfather's thoughts in mind, and I believe there is no such thing as a Black American, a Hispanic American, a Chinese American. If they're born in the continental United States, they are Americans. Period. Some of my best friends were of different, all these different human rights categories in the service. But I respected each and every one of them every time. And some of them came in right when I needed help at the most needed time. So I believe in treating everybody equally. That's what the Constitution says. That's what this country was founded on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You get to answer this next question first. It's about roads. Many of the main roads in Camino are falling apart literally. They are degrading to a point of needing replacement rather than maintenance. Apple Hill traffic contributes to the wear and tear. Do the farms and vineyards pay a fair share for road maintenance? What's the solution? Mr. DeBerry.
This road issue goes back to years of kicking the can down the street, wanting other things and other priorities that we didn't need. I mean, every one of us every day witnesses the bad shape our roads are in. Did we need to buy a $3.1 million used helicopter instead of putting lane markings on Missouri Flat Road? In my opinion, the roads come first because that's your right to drive on a safe road. We have wrong priorities everywhere in this county. We just don't look at what needs to be done. We allow other people to do what we want done, and then we criticize. That's why I want to get all of you engaged in helping me do, if elected, what we need to do. And I want you to be able to walk up to me anywhere, anytime, and say, Brian, not Supervisor DeBerry, not Mr. DeBerry, but Brian, say, I have a problem with the county. Please help me with this. And that's what my job is. It's not going off to someplace else, to a board meeting, somewhere. My job is to help protect you, get you what you want, and I intend to, elected, go around the whole roads in my district and look and see what needs to be fixed. I'm currently fighting for a water leak on Fowler Lane that has been leaking for two months, and I haven't gotten any help from anybody, including the DOT.
Thank you. Mr. Bearcamp?
Yes, well, obviously, Camino is a very interesting topic because it is a big part of our agritourism, but it's all done on roads basically that were built for wagons. We piloted a transit program more than a couple years ago now, and you know, the farmers just didn't like that because people couldn't get their produce and different things in a timely fashion in their vehicles. But we had over 4,500 riders during that time period, and it was all grant funded, and again, trying to alleviate that traffic. But I believe there's opportunity for maybe some assessment districts in that area, past the cost of the road improvements, and I'm just talking about maintenance, as well as enough room so vehicles could get through, get a transit system back going again, but use some assessment districts and just assess the folks that are coming up here. They're used to paying big money for things. Look at some of the transit occupancy taxes in some of the big cities. We're not even close to that up here. and we can certainly add it, and it would be value added for our county, and our residents wouldn't have to put up with paying for the road maintenance. Obviously, we still got a traffic issue because we are far exceeded capacity of Highway 50, and so there's been Trip to Green, there's been other projects, and we need to stay on Caltrans because not all of it is our own. It's interstate traffic to Nevada. Just watch the Nevada plates coming and going daily. Thank you.
Thank you. Lexi?
Well, I'm proud to say that I'm actually already working on this problem as we speak. We have been at the table with industry leaders in Apple Hill in the wine industry, and the Farm Bureau and others to look at as I was talking before, it's a business improvement district, and what it is a contract between those industries and the county, wherein you charge, say, a 2%. You can eat it or you can pass it on. 1% goes back to those ag industries and 1% goes to the county for whatever they want to use it for. And in this case, it would be roads, which is what we're pushing for. In exchange, the industry who's voluntarily charging their own customers, then we would help them by improving some of their business conditions so that they can also increase their business so that they can cover their fee. It's a win-win for everybody. They understand that their businesses are drawing major traffic that is having an impact on the community. So they are interested in making a relationship with the county in this way that can solve the problem and be mutually beneficial. So they're already at the table, we're already talking about this, and if I were to get elected, this would be one of the first initiatives that I push forward so that we can get some resolution on those roads in Camino. But you know, because I hear the tone of the public getting mad at all this traffic. Ag is 750 million total economic impact in the county. So it's important for the community, but we need to get a balance on the roads.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Well, I grew up in Camino, and when I was up there as a kid, I thought that the traffic was terrible. And that was in the 70s and 80s. It felt like I lived in Anaheim and Disneyland was just down the street. You know, there's certain times of the year where it takes me a half an hour just to get to my house off the freeway. I feel that if they're going to have those roads fixed, I think it needs to be done because I'm still seeing the same potholes that I saw when I learned to drive up there. Taxing the businesses in Camino, I don't think it's the right idea. I think taxing the products that they sell for the tourists and having the tourism pay for it. But we have a huge budget in El Dorado County. I think that they need to be thinking about where they spend that money a little more wisely and take care of fixing some of our roads, not just in Camino, but in other locations in El Dorado County, like just downtown Placerville, for instance. It's a tourism spot. It's where everybody comes to see. That's why people from around the world know this place. They don't know this place as a rest stop or a place to get gas on the way to Tahoe. You can talk to people all over the world, and they know about the gold rush, and they say, oh, that's where you live. So I think that there's a way that they can find it to get the money out of what taxes we already have, and then not put the burden back on the businesses that are there. We want to encourage those businesses to stay open so that we can bring more visitors to our county to bring in more revenue.
Okay, thank you. This is a good time to remind everyone that we are being filmed, and this film will be made available in a week or two on League of Women Voters YouTube channel. Okay, Gary, you're going to be the first on this question. Why are so many people homeless? What can El Dorado County do to help resolve local homelessness?
Well, the homeless problems seem to be growing all over the state. I was recently at a meeting where the sheriff was speaking, and he had a lot of great ideas and he's implementing a lot of them on how he can take care of that problem and make things better in our county. If I'm elected, I hope to be able to support him and make sure he has all the tools necessary so that he can continue his good work. I think he's really doing a good job on that. As far as the rest of the homeless population, I hear all kinds of rumors of people being bussed into El Dorado County from other counties. I personally don't understand why any homeless people in the valley would want to move to El Dorado County in the wintertime. I hear that the problem's worse here in the wintertime for the homeless. That doesn't make any sense. I would think that they would want to be someplace where it's a little bit warmer. I think that the best thing we can do is try to help our sheriff and our county officials work on this problem and try to support and encourage them to continue what they're doing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. DeBerry?
I've told people, been trying to tell people for a long time, my lodge donated money to the upper room kitchen to buy food. My wife and I went and bought food for them to take up there. in my opinion only, because maybe you guys will not agree, the government doesn't want to fix the program. They do not want it. It's a moneymaker. They can take money from here, put it over here, run it through all the little cubicles, and what comes out over here is a shadow of what they started with. An attitude by all of us has to change. When same deal, I was getting water for they needed it up at the kitchen. So I'm in with Sam's Club getting water in the middle of the Capitol Fire. And I've got like 12 cases of water. This elderly gentleman gets out of a brand new Mercedes, walks over to me with a big smile and says, "Are you Mr. DeBerry?" And I said, "Yes, because it's on the back of my truck." "Are you buying this for the firefighters?" And I said, "No, sir, I'm not." "Well, where are you taking this?" I said, "I'm taking it to the homeless kitchen in Placerville because they need fresh drinking water. They're out." I got such a look of disgust from that gentleman, and he couldn't get away from me fast enough. And to me, that just shows the attitude we have to take. Because right now, to me, with the way this country's going, we are in the pitfall of a very adversarial government, and we all could be homeless next week. And we got to stop it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Beerkamp?
Because they're allowed to be. We have to do a much better job. About 85% of them are allowed to live however they want to live. And to me, that's not acceptable. And right now, there's a bunch of them living on private property around the county building because of the infrastructure that now has been placed out there at the county. I believe as well the sheriff has some good solutions, and they didn't take that option last time around, and we have to do it here pretty soon. Around 15 to 20% of them have legitimate problems, and there's, believe me, there's 20 some odd programs out there to help those people that truly need it, and we certainly need to accentuate that. But for the other ones, it's just tolerated. Matter of fact, Brian's right. It's a moneymaker, and that is not acceptable. And I don't think it's acceptable for the people either, except for they get used to it, and then it becomes almost like an addiction, let alone the other drug addictions and other things that they have. So we as a society can do better when not tolerate the ones that are just out there basically living or freeloading wherever they can. The people that truly need the services, we've got them for it. We have to be tougher on the ones that don't.
Okay, thank you. Lexi?
Well, I think that's the statement, right? We not here, move them out, not going to be tolerated. Every community everywhere in the West is saying that. So when everyone is saying we just need to move them out and not tolerate them, and everyone's doing it at the same time, where is everybody going to go? We're just moving people around. That doesn't solve the problem. We really have to start looking at the reason of the problem. And it's very complex. We've got to look at some short-term solutions, obviously, stop the bleeding. And our biggest problem, I think, in the county is we just have breaks in the infrastructure to deal with it. So some get arrested, they get in jail, they get put out, there's no transitional housing, someone needs mental health care and they get handled by the hospital, and then they get passed off to the county, and then they're lost. And we just don't have a continuous system to try to get a grip on it. In the long term, there's a reason why when kids play musical chairs and the music stops, one kid's not sitting in a chair. And it's not because he's a bad person, it's because there's not enough chairs. So we have a housing crisis, a huge critical housing crisis. We have an economic crisis. We have a wealth disparity. This is economics and this is housing and it's mental health services. These are long-term bigger pictures. We need to work with the state, and it's a bigger problem.
Okay, thank you. You get to answer the next question first. The survey of El Dorado County citizens last September resulted in a strong preference for the semi-rural character and accessible landscapes. Page 4, bullet 2 states, keeping the county rural with less growth and development, quote unquote. In August, the BOS working group opted to leave out the term rural in their updated vision statement. How would you go about maintaining a rural landscape in El Dorado County?
Well, I would put rural back in the vision statement. I think that is absolutely who we are. My dad always taught me, and he talked about legacy people in the county having the foresight to do land use planning that protected our rural zoning. We are an agriculturally based community. We have the beautiful Sierras. I mean, this is our asset. I don't think that being rural and maintaining that landscape doesn't mean that we're not going to meet our housing needs. We can meet what we need to meet in the community in terms of housing and not do it in a way that just destroys our landscape. Nobody wants to be Roseville. My idea of economic development is not big box stores or Amazon distribution centers. We need to get creative. We need to look at our rural economy and find ways to have our niche rural economy be good for the people and provide a living. And we need to build housing in a way that is within the infrastructure and done in a way that maintains the aesthetic. And it's really about not sprawling out. And we've got to protect the zoning that we've got of the open space that we do. I think it's critical.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Well, like I've said many times before, we need to stick to our general plan and not keep eroding it. I feel that the general plan is the answer to fixing a lot of the problems that the Board of Supervisors keep making things worse. If we go ahead and try to get the groups that we have in town, all these different organizations, these different committees, to get on board and follow through with what all the voters wanted. We wanted to have the general plan in place so that we could protect the community and make sure that our rural, our open spaces, our farmlands, our natural resources, our forests were protected. I think that that's the main thing that we really need to focus on in this county right now. Otherwise, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be like every other big city. It's going to look like Vacaville or something eventually. You see what El Dorado Hills has become. Do we want that to be that way all the way to Lake Tahoe? Because I'm afraid that that's what their overall goal is, to have everything just be a mass sea of houses with everything on a 1/16 of an acre lot. I think that that needs to change, and we need to go back to what we originally voted on and stick to that general plan.
Thank you. Mr. DeBerry?
To me, you have two things in opposition. We just talked about earlier about affordable housing and being rural. So we have to accommodate both of them. I know most of you, and I do, I love the rural community. That's why I came back here from the service. I love this county from top to bottom. I like the ruralness of it. But at the same token, we have to accommodate the workforce housing. I go back to the workforce housing should be closer to the workforce jobs. I mean, I hear people, oh, our kids have got to find a job. There's no jobs here, people. There isn't the kind of jobs that we all seem to think that there's here. There's just not. There's most of them are, you're my same age bracket, most of you people in here. You're not looking for jobs. All your kids are living somewhere else, most of you, I would imagine. So we have to accommodate both the rural element that people like you moved here to respect, and we also have to respect that there is workforce housing. So it's got to be an equal balance between the two. And I will do everything I can to maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bierkamp?
Yes, that was one of the things that made me scratch my head. Major element of the general plan are rural regions. So to take that out of our vision, it was, again, mind-boggling to me. So yeah, I'd work to get that back in there, but more importantly, you get east of Cameron Park, the topography and the infrastructure doesn't warrant anything other than rural building and so forth. We're not going to bulldoze these mountains down. We're not going to put in major pipelines and major roadway infrastructure. It just isn't going to happen. So we have to concentrate it in the right areas. And then, you know what? One size does not fit all. This state of California thinks everything's flat and everything should be the same. It's not. We need to get to the state and we need to push back and work the best with them that we can, but sometimes we just have to tell them, no, it doesn't work here. So that's what I would do, and I think it has to start happening. And it's not only here, but other places as well, and we can form coalitions to do it.
Okay, thank you. All right, you get to answer the next question first. I'm, again, combining two. How many board meetings did you actually attend or Zoom into this past year? How many meetings did you watch after the fact? This past year was very difficult for the board. What do you think was the most controversial issue they dealt with, and how would you have weighed in?
That's loaded. Anyway, so much to my wife's chagrin, I try to at least zoom in, if not attend, based on what the topic is. But usually I'm zoomed in for various reasons, because between EID, Marshall Hospital, the El Dorado Community Foundation, there's numerous topics that are going on, so I try to pay pretty close attention to it. Probably the biggest thing that I think is important is the plan. And I think it's made it more complex. They've added more elements. And to me, you need to have a simple plan, and then you work the plan. Obviously, if there's change that needs to occur, then you do that through strategic review. But they've really, in my opinion, have gotten it so complex, you're never going to achieve anything. So that would be something that I certainly would have strived for. We did have a fairly simple strategic plan in the past. And again, we involved the community to help develop that. And then we went out and worked the plan, and that's what has to be done.
Okay, thank you. Lexi?
Well, I can't count how many meetings I've watched or been in. It's just my favorite Tuesday thing to do with a cup of coffee in the morning. And also as a planning commissioner, I do try to follow any of our own items that go forward, just so I can be abreast on where things are going. But I think the question is, what was one of the most challenging, it's been a challenging year, and what was one of the most challenging meetings that we witnessed? And I would say that the meeting when we had the anti-Semitic call-ins and racist call-ins just attacking the board, and to see the board's confusion as to how to handle that situation, not having the resources available to know. They felt like they could shut it down because it was free speech. They didn't have any expectation it was coming. There was a lot of deer in the headlights on that. And then everybody just had to sit there and listen to it. And council didn't have ready advice for them either. And I think that was probably one of the most difficult moments for a supervisor to have to sit through. Hindsight is 2020. I think it was a good opportunity. I know they have a plan now, and council has better advice for them about how to handle that. But I think from my perspective, watching them and talking to the supervisors on a personal level, emotional level, and as a leadership level, that was just a really critical moment and surprising for them and a hard one to deal with.
Thank you. Gary?
Well, I didn't go to Board of Supervisors meetings until I decided that I needed to do something and run. Before that, I just watched them online. I didn't do the Zoom calls, but once I decided I was going to run back in the fall, I started going to the meetings. I went to about a dozen of the Board of Supervisors meetings in person, sat in the back. Sometimes I was the only one there in the audience. And eventually, I ended up getting sick over the holidays, and that took me out of commission for a little while, so I didn't get to go to so many. I got pneumonia. Now I'm trying to go back to the meetings. I hope to be able to see more of them in person and give it more of a part of it. I've only spoken to a couple of the members of the board after meetings and met with them and talked to them about what they did that day. As far as the rest of the meetings, I hope to be able to make it to some more of these, something in the near future.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeBerry?
Could you repeat the last part of that problem or question, please?
Yeah. Past year was very difficult for the board. What do you think was the most controversial issue they dealt with, and how would you have weighed in, and how many board meetings did you actually attend?
Actually, I've attended since I ran 3.5 years ago and lost to ex-mayor Wendy Thomas. I'm routinely at the board voicing my opinions about what I think is wrong. You'll be hearing about it possibly soon. I was the one that brought up to the Charter Commission, the review of the charter, Article 2, Section 504, on setting the salaries for the sheriff's office. My complaint is how they set the average. It is currently set by using comparable jobs. The police chief of South Lake Tahoe, the sheriff of Amador County, and wait for it, the California Highway Patrol commandant, who makes over $700,000 a year, and we wonder why we have such an expensive salary for the sheriff's office. All I asked them was to take and put it back down to a county comparable to this county. And what did they do? The word got out. Other people's jobs got tied to it that aren't even in the sheriff's office, The county council's job got tied to it, the county CAO's title got tied to it, and so did the DA was already tied to it. 2 months later, after he qualifies to retire with a new salary, the CAO leaves for greener pastures. That's the kind of things I'm looking for. I'm going back this week and fuss at the board because I can't get any pull to fix this water leak. It's endangering my friends and my neighbors in Diamond Springs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You get to answer the next question first. There's yet another one on the subject of housing, etc. New multifamily and commercial developments in the county go through a process that is not well documented and difficult for the public to understand. Dorado Oaks in Diamond Springs and Project Frontier are good examples of how projects are being slipped under the rug until they are almost too late for public engagement. What are your thoughts on the multifamily or commercial development process with public awareness in mind? And what would you do to enable more public awareness? Mr. DeBerry.
I was probably instrumental in the first group that formed the Diamond Springs Coalition, but I backed away because I wanted to be able to be free to say what I wanted to say without it rubbing off on the other people. And I'm an adamant. They're trying to destroy, we just alluded to it, all this up here, the history of this county. Diamond Springs is a historical monument, number 487. It's on the bronze plaque in front of the Diamond Springs Fire Department. It's the springs. It's not one spring, it's springs. We've already buried a couple of them under across from the Quick Stop. There is so much history about Diamond Springs. I want to preserve it, and building a 385-unit housing complex that destroys downtown Diamond Springs with a roundabout is not saving Diamond Springs. I have a rumor that I haven't totally back. They want to take housing all the way, eventually all the way to Union Mine School. We can't afford that. We haven't got the water. We haven't got the infrastructure. When I went to the board in person, I challenged them to come sit, like I said I think earlier, to come sit in front of Deb's Frosty anytime between 3:30 and 5:30 and see what years of bad planning and stuff have accomplished for Diamond Springs. I'll bet you nobody in here could tell me that there was actually an Indian war in El Dorado County. It was called El Dorado Indian War. It cost the state $100,000 to fight it in 1870, I believe. That's the kind of history I'm trying to preserve. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Beard.
Yeah. So Dorado Oaks, like it or not, was actually an approved project years ago. But since they didn't get it done, it now has faced a whole lot of challenges, and I don't think it will ever get done. I believe there's way too many challenges. The infrastructure's not there, and it's just going to be a major hurdle. And currently now, it's basically just sort of went away, and it needs to be, in my mind, suspended from the county, or them told to either bring it forward or not. But I think they're afraid that they know what the answer is going to be. So I don't think prolonging that does anybody any good. We just ought to be done with it. Frontier was a whole other story. It was a discretionary project that certainly the public got the word, and they rose up and they put it to bed. I don't think it would have seen the light of day either. It just had too many issues relevant to it, and again, to support the infrastructure, to support something of that magnitude was not there. Now there's some floor space area requirements in the general plan and so forth that also that it would have exceeded, and I think those were changed due to a problem in the original general plan. But we need to be cognizant of that. We need to put out proper guidelines early and up front, and then make sure to notify the public so they can weigh in also at that time.
Okay, thank you.
For Dorado Oaks, I am not allowed to speak to that as a planning commissioner in case it does come back, so no comment there. But, you know, Project Frontier, I mean, that's just a disaster waiting to happen. One of my biggest issues is this county has its head in the sand, and it's 40 years ago in its thinking, and it's looking backwards. That potential that even would have gone into research and development zoning is only because our use matrix is so out of date that we don't have a definition for a retail distribution center, because the last time we updated that section was before the interweb machine was invented. So we really need to, and that opens us up for being vulnerable to, Amazon is known for being predatory around areas that don't have updated land use like that. So we were vulnerable, and then we saw dollar signs in our eyes because they overblew the economic development potential of that. And that's another thing where we have to stop looking at these business models as our economic development solution, because this was 2,000 low-wage jobs with houses that we didn't have to provide for these people. So it would be people driving in, working, and leaving, and it would have been no economic development to us for what it was going to cost us to be there. As for the public process piece, I would be really open to projects of a certain size, triggering a public posting on a very easy to use and access website, so at least you can see that something is going on and look further. But I don't have a lot of hope to our technological advancements in the planning department.
Thank you. Gary?
Well, I feel that Dorado Oaks and Project Frontier, both, they're not going to work. They should have thought about this a little bit better. If they had stuck to the general plan, Measure E, they would have been able to find out early on and then been honest with the developers about what they were doing. It would have saved the developers a lot of money and time. It would have saved the public a lot of money and time. They need to have gotten all the residents involved early in the process of this. I mean, if they just stick to the plan, they could have a map that just says, these are the areas, don't ask. Don't even try to build in these areas. You're not going to be able to do it. It's not good. I think that's something they really need to focus on. It's just, like I said before, going back and sticking to the general plan, and then these problems wouldn't have happened.
Thank you. That'll be the end of the questions tonight. We're going to go into closing statements. If we did not ask your particular question about what's the worst problem, or what do you think we should do about this, that, I think they did cover pretty much everything that you might want to talk about. So I apologize if your particular question was not asked. We will now go in for closing statements, and we'll start with Mr. DeBerry.
I'd like to end my closing statement by putting forth my idea about insurance, because it also involves roads. It involves all of us. I'm tired myself of being victimized by insurance companies. Why are we standing here or sitting here letting them do it to us? And even more importantly is, why are we letting the state make us comply with this? The state and the county, they self-insure themselves. I was told by the county assessor there's 135,000 taxable parcels in this county. If we put it on the tax bill as a separate deal, everybody pays $1,000 a month or $1,000 a year. That's $135 million. They could pay claims and do whatever else that helps fire control. The one thing we have to do is not let, if we get fortunate enough to do this, and I believe we can do it, I've checked into it, is we cannot let the county stick their hand in the back pocket and take any money like they do with the occupancy tax. Every time I go to look at the agenda, they've got something else tied onto the occupancy tax. The occupancy tax now to me is a slush fund. It's supposed to be fixing the roads. They took all that money away that was apparently going to fix roads, and now they put it towards all these other priorities they have. But I really think we can look into this. The other commitment too is anybody that signs into it would have to keep their property fire safe. And I think anybody sitting here would rather pay $1,000 a year than $8,000 or $9,000. And I think it'll work. And on my little turquoise fire, I'll give you, there's a way of how it'll work. But we have to institute something. We have to start thinking out of the box. Because otherwise, we're just going to keep being taken by the state and the insurance company. The state creates the problem, and then they collect money on it from that fair plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bearcamp?
Yeah, it's an honor to be here tonight, and thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting us. You know, I've just been blessed and honored to serve citizens in El Dorado County. I'd love to continue to do that. I'm a proven leader in our county. My knowledge, skills, experience, professionalism, and integrity more than qualify me for this position. It'd be, again, an honor to serve you again. Together we can again, and we will make a difference. I'm currently endorsed by all of our current elected individuals at the county. That's Joe Harm, Jeff Lykoff, our sheriff, Brian Frazier, Karen Coleman, Ed Monticello, our superintendent of schools, our assessor John DeVille, assembly members Dolly and Patterson, Senator Marie Gill. So I've had the opportunity to work with those folks. I want to do that again, and I can do it to the betterment of El Dorado County. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I know it's a bad night to be out, but please drive home safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Lexi?
People are frustrated with the government, its broken processes, its lack of accountability, and its general unfairness to regular people, specifically people who are unfamiliar with the system or don't have strings to pull besides their own bootstraps. And that's why I'm running, because I can either sit out here and keep rattling the cage from the outside, or I can get on the dais and make the votes that we desperately need. I was raised in a family business, but I'm going to say this. El Dorado County government is not a family business, and no one is entitled to inherit this position. I will work for it, and I will work for you. We need new ideas and new vision, and we cannot put old solutions on new problems. The future is coming, and we really need somebody with the energy and the knowledge to navigate it. You've heard my platform with the questions, so I'll just say the spirit of why I'm running. I'm here to create relationships. I'm here to build trust in local government, and I want to find shared goals between us so that we can move together as a community forward. So I hope that you trust me with your vote on March 5th. It's coming up soon. And I just thank everybody for being here, and I hope to get to know all of you better.
Okay. Thank you. Larry?
I have to ask all of you something. Why are you here? You obviously care about this county, and you want something to change. That's the reason I'm running. If it wasn't for the way things have been done in the last decade and a half out here in El Dorado County, I probably would never have done this. But I grew up here. I'm a resident, just like you. My parents, my grandparents, they all did things for their service, for their country, and for their residents and their families and people that they knew. My grandfather was a police officer and a school teacher. My father was a Marine that fought in World War II in Korea. My mom, she's an occupational therapist that worked with stroke patients and burn victims at Marshall Hospital. I myself started a charity group in Sacramento that works with all of the children's hospitals, visiting the pediatric patients, bringing hope to all of the cancer children that are down there at UC Davis, Shriners, Ronald McDonald House, and Sutter Children's Hospital. I want to give back to my county. It's the only reason I'm running is because I care. I hope to get your vote so that I can try to bring us all together and we can work together to fix these problems so that we can save the county that we all love. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And now you can applaud. That concludes our forum. I'd like to thank the candidates for participating. I'd like to thank all the volunteers for helping and to make this forum possible. I'd like to thank the city for allowing the league to hold this forum in this town hall tonight. And we'd like to thank Bill and Steve for recording the forum tonight.
Get those facts before you vote by visiting votersedge.org today. Your vote is your voice. Make sure you get out and vote this election day.